Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to Are Major League Baseball umpires the worst in sports? Now this is going to be an interesting one because umpires, I think, probably have one of the worst jobs in sports. Yes, I know they're under a lot of pressure to get decisions right, sometimes they don't, but the abuse they get off players, off coaches, man, they get right in their faces, man. It's just crazy. So this video here, it's by Baseball Doesn't Exist. Always great videos from that channel, so I know this is going to be a fun one to watch. So let's do it.
Baseball is a culture unlike any other sport where it is almost completely acceptable to treat officials as subhuman creatures.
Do it again and I'll knock you right in your nose!
There are countless examples of managers, fans, and players screaming in umpires' faces, throwing equipment on the field, kicking dirt on them, and physically assaulting them with almost zero consequences. Babe Ruth once walked off the mound, punched an umpire in his face, was escorted off the field by police, and was only suspended 10 games. Umpires have been beaten, spit.
I mean, if you did that today, you'd probably get put in prison, but 10 games?
On, yelled at relentlessly, and even shot while doing their job. And to some, this type of treatment is justified because Major League umpires may be the worst officials in professional sports. According to a Boston University study, home plate umpires make the wrong call over 12% of the time, miss 14 calls per game. The best ones are rarely chosen to umpire in the league's biggest games, and the worst ones are rarely fired.
Why is that? Maybe it's it's so that makes it interesting, doesn't it, right?
Umpires themselves have been punished for beating up players, beating up fans, and injuring players on the field.
Oh my gosh.
But soon, these umpires may be extinct. But who are the league's best and worst umpires? Are Joe West and Angel Hernandez really that bad? Why baseball has a history of blatantly promoting and encouraging umpire abuse? And is the technology that will soon replace them actually better?
We're here, and this crew is here just to us. You gotta give us a shot. You know what? You gotta give us a shot.
Put that in your report, you little pipsqueak.
This is crazy.
Major League umpires get treated on the field worse than any other official in sports, and this is actually by design. Today, if you throw your hat at an umpire, cover home plate with dirt, steal third base, army crawl to the mound, pick up the rosin bag and throw it like a grenade, then steal second base and literally walk off the field like Philip Wellman did, you will be suspended 3 games. If you pick up your bat and throw it across the field directly at an umpire, hitting him in the chest like Delman Young did, you will be suspended 50 games. But if you did either of these things in the early days of professional baseball, you would probably get a raise, because abusing umpires back then was not only accepted, it was blatantly promoted by teams, the media, and league officials for the sole reason that it boosted attendance and added to the fan experience.
Just as expected, it's all about the money. How much money can they get at the gate? It's kind of sad though, because it sucks for the umpire.
In 1903, a player was shot by a fan of the opposing team to prevent him from stealing second base.
No
He was carried off the field and died on the sideline, but the two teams kept playing. In the 8th inning, the umpire made a call that gave one team the lead.
He
a fan on
died?
the other team shot the umpire 3 times, started a brawl, the 2 killers ran away, and the game was canceled. In total, from 1899 to 1927, at least 8 umpires were murdered by players or fans for making controversial calls.
Holy shit. They were murdered. I mean, come on. I love sports. Lots of people love sports. But you don't have to kill people over sports. Come on.
And although this never happened in a major league game, umpires were frequently chased by angry mobs of fans after games for making bad calls or just any time their team lost. Similar to what happened to Laz Diaz in a game in 2003, but this guy was charged and sent to prison. In the early 1900s, police often made exceptions because in some places, umpire mobbing was just seen as part of the game. This happened so much in amateur and minor minor league games that local police chiefs issued orders like this one made in Virginia that required police to start protecting umpires from these mobs. Umpires were not only required to enforce the rules, they were required to defend themselves. If they couldn't, they were fired. Like John Conway, who may have the saddest umpire career of all time. His first year as an umpire, he was assaulted by a player on the Cardinals. 2 months later, a different Cardinals player assaulted him, causing a riot and police escort, but the umpire was actually the one who got punished, and after the season he was fired.
Oh, that's out of order. He got fired. That's just ridiculous.
He went to the Eastern League, where a player was arrested and spent 10 days in jail for kicking him in the chest. Less than a week later, he was mobbed by fans after a game and had to be escorted by police to the train station. Soon after, only 3 years since he started, he quit umpiring for good. Back then, being able to fight would not only help you survive, it would get you a promotion. Just ask George Major Kirk, who during 6 years
that face.
as a minor league umpire, broke a player's jaw with his fist, punched a different player in the face, was assaulted by that player's teammate, causing police to arrive, fought a manager after a game underneath the stands, punched a fan in his face after the crowd rushed the field, and once showed up to a player's hotel room to demand an apology. When the player refused, he beat him up and was sentenced for assault and battery. The very next year, he was promoted to be a major league umpire, where he called 4 World Series, 2 All-Star games, punched a shortstop in the face, was beaten up by a fan who rushed the field, was spat on by a player, spit on a player, and once entered the stands in the middle of a game to punch a heckler in the face. He retired after—
I mean, I'm sorry, this guy, he clearly is a little bit—
after 19 major league seasons due to leg injuries. The days of umpire mobbing and umpire assault slowly faded starting at the turn of the century, but managers, fans, and players screaming at and intimidating umpires any chance they could remains rampant and to large part accepted by everyone in baseball. In 1996, Roberto Alomar spit in umpire John Hirschbeck's face after he made a bad call. Alomar was only suspended 5 games.
That's
umpire
disgusting.
Shag Crawford once was—
That would be worse today because of the pandemic. That's so disgusting. Come on.
so fed up with a manager and player, he started the game while getting screamed at, called a strike without anybody in the batter's box. The manager and 2 other players then tried to get in the batter's box. Another pitch was thrown above the players' heads, and Shag Wilson called the pitch a strike as well. Umpire Randy Marsh once ejected Bobby Valentine for arguing, but Valentine had so little respect for his authority, he put on sunglasses, a fake mustache, and came back into the dugout. Umpire Bob Davidson even had to throw out a mascot for annoying him and the players during a game, which begs the question, why would anybody want to be a major league umpire?
Honestly.
And many people would respond,
I mean, how much do these guys make? If I had to guess, they've got to be on a couple $100,000 a year. So it's good money, but the stress, man, the stress.
by saying that they can get paid close to $350,000 a season, fly first class to every game, and due to a corrupt system, even if they suck, they will not only never be fired, but in many cases be promoted to call the most important playoff and World Series games. But the path to becoming a major league umpire is extremely miserable. First, you will need to go to an umpire school, which is required by MLB.
What we do is take a baseball and we throw it into your face.
It costs around $2,500 to enroll. The course lasts 3 to 5 weeks, where students go to class, listen to lectures, take tests, exercise, and get taught how to get screamed at by managers. Those who finish at the top of their
They get taught how to get screamed at.
class go on to the next evaluation, where they are graded for a week. The best umpires at this course will be rewarded with the opportunity to become a minor league umpire, where they are on the road the entire season, required to drive themselves hundreds of miles to get to each game, staying in a hotel every night, making around $60 a game, and being abused by players, fans.
$60 a game? Man, how many games a week? What, maybe 3? 4? $240 a week?
And managers on a regular basis. Managers like Wally Backman have become famous for tirades like this, where he followed the umpire around the field, covered home plate in dirt, and threw over a dozen bats and a bucket of balls onto the field.
Pick that up, you piece of shit.
Damn.
The craziest part about this is that the league didn't even suspend or fine him, and instead scolded the umpire for acting unprofessionally. Backman was suspended, however, for cursing out the opposing team's radio announcer and general manager for their comments about his ejection. But hands down, the pound-for-pound king of disrespecting umpires is a manager named Joe Mikulik. Joe Mikulik has built up a resume with several of the best ejections of all time. While arguing with the call, he once took off both his shoes and threw one of them into the opposing team's dugout. On another occasion, he took his shoes and shirt off and left them at home plate. His signature move is to demonstrate to the umpires how they got the call wrong by sliding into a base himself. He also loves taking the bases out from the ground and throwing them, punching them, or giving them to a fan. But
this guy's nuts, man. He's nuts. Come on. There's no reasonable explanation for all of this.
His best ejection occurred in 2006 when he screamed at an umpire's face, dove into second base, stole the bag, threw it into right field, threw the rosin bag into right field, kicked dirt on the umpire, then covered the plate in dirt, went to the dugout, threw 4 bats onto the field, went back onto the field, covered the plate in water, slammed his water bottle, screamed in the umpire's face again, and left the game. As of now, no other minor league manager can live up to the legend of Joe Mikulik, but many seem to try. Manager Gary Robinson once cursed out an umpire, covered home plate, then stole first base, autographed it, and gave it to a kid in the stands. Butch Hobson once he got ejected, then pretended to hit a home run, ran around the bases, then celebrated with his team. Player Brian Metzger once got ejected and proceeded to get...
Okay, most of this stuff has to be for box office. It's got to be like pantomime. They can't really, be feeling so heated that they do this stuff, right?
A garbage can from the dugout and placed it behind home plate. Pat Kelly pretended to eject all 3 umpires, took his jersey off, used the rosin bag as a stick of deodorant, and spiked it into the ground. And Cash Bokamp took off one of his shoes, stuck it in an umpire's face, made him smell his armpit, spiked his other shoe, then went to the dugout, got 2 batting weights, and used them as binoculars. Just like players, umpires start in the lowest level of the minors. The umpires with the best evaluations will move up to the next level. However, until they get to AAA, if an umpire goes 3 seasons without being promoted, they are required to go all the way back to umpire school and start the process over again. Umpire schools regularly host over 100 umpires every single year. On average, only one of them will ever call a major league game. According to Baseball America, about 17% of players drafted in MLB will play a major league game, while only 3% of minor league umpires will ever call a major league game.
Isn't that insane? So it's harder to become an umpire in the major leagues than it is to actually play.
And even if an umpire is elite, it typically takes him 10 to 15 years to ever get a chance at the major league level. If you account for all the hours of travel and preparation, minor league umpires get paid under minimum wage, so their motivation to move up is extremely high and is constantly being reviewed. And only the ones with the best evaluations will ever come close to the major league level. But MLB umpires still have a reputation of being the worst officials in sports, and a study done in 2018 makes it seem that this could be true. But baseball fans have been saying this for years because of calls like this. Jim Joyce calls the runner safe, but he is clearly out. Jim Joyce was voted the best umpire in the league by players in 2012.
But surely, umpires are going to get replaced by some kind of artificial intelligence or just some kind of sensor or something. Like video assistant, it's inevitable.
And even saved a woman's life with CPR before a game. But what he is most known for is making this call, which is one of the worst in history and prevented the final out in what should have been the 18th perfect game of all time. Or this call, where the runner is called out, but Todd Helton is 2 feet off the bag. And strikes like these, where the ball is clearly right down the middle, called a ball, or way out of the zone and called a strike. Fans can easily tell when an umpire blows a call due to the animated strike zone on TV broadcasts, but umpires don't have this luxury, and it shows. Boston University analyzed over 4 million pitches over 11 seasons of baseball and claimed when it comes to calling balls and strikes, major league umpires make the wrong call over 12% of the time, and
12% is unacceptable. It's an unacceptable error rate. I mean, come on.
averaged 14 missed calls a game. They rank the umpire based on performance, and although MLB says umpires are assigned postseason games based on how good they are, they found some of the worst performing umpires often called the biggest games, which historically has been a problem and produced some of the worst calls in history. In a one-game playoff to go to the NLDS, Matt Holliday went home on a sacrifice fly. When he got there, he never touched the plate, but he was called safe, scoring the game-winning run and eliminating the Padres. This was called a double play in the LCS, even though Chuck Knobloch missed the tag by at least a foot. Mike Napoli got Jorge Posada and Robinson Cano in a pickle, clearly tagged both of them while they were off the bag, but both were called safe. Even Cano thought he was out, so he left the bag again. Napoli tagged him again, but he was still called safe. In 1985, the Cardinals were 3 outs away from winning the World Series until the leadoff hitter was called safe on this play where he was clearly out. Later that inning, he and another runner would go on to score to win the game, forcing a Game 7 where the Cardinals lost, meaning that there is a pretty good chance that this bad call cost the Cardinals the World Series.
If you were a Cardinal in that team, man, you would feel so hard done by.
And in the 1997
Have they ever taken like stuff like this to court? Like some kind of review process? Because I would.
NLCS in what could have been the worst umpire performance of all time, Eric Gregg for some reason decided to call every single outside pitch to lefties a strike, even if they were a foot out of the zone. Livan Hernandez pitched 9 innings and set a NLCS record with 15 strikeouts, despite averaging less than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings that season. Boston University found out of the 7 umpires who called the 2018 World Series, none of them were in the top 10 best performing umpires, and the man who was selected as crew chief was actually one of the 10 worst performing umpires. Umpires are watched by evaluators on every single pitch. They are not only judged by their decisions, but also how they dress, how they conduct themselves, and even how they stand between innings. Umpires get a report after every single game, telling them what they did right.
Damn, that guy was... He was yelling at full volume at that umpire. Spit flying everywhere.
What they did wrong, and how they can improve. From 2008 to 2018, umpires improved as a whole every single year. Major League umpires are more accurate and consistent than ever before, thanks to the feedback they get on these reports. These reports also show which umpires are performing worse than the others. For a full-time umpire to be fired, evaluators have to notice a drop in performance. This does occur, but to my knowledge, them being fired for it has either never happened or is extremely rare. When umpires are fired, it's usually because of some controversial off-the-field issue. Dave Pallone was forced to resign after the New York Post reported he was involved in an illegal sex ring. He was later cleared of that charge and says MLB got rid of him solely for the fact they found out he was gay. Al Clark was fired for downgrading his first-class flights paid by MLB and keeping the money.
Cheeky.
An umpire was recently fired for failing multiple drug tests. It is way more likely for an umpire to be suspended, which actually happens quite frequently. Bruce Fleming received a 10-day suspension for using an anti-Semitic slur about an umpire administrator. Mike Williams was suspended after he caused Milton Bradley to tear his ACL. According to MLB, he baited Bradley, causing him to get mad, run out of the dugout, and hurt his knee. The umpire was suspended for the rest of the season, and another umpire was suspended for making threats to Rob Manfred. So when umpires are punished, it seems like it's always for reasons other than making bad calls, which may explain Angel Hernandez and Joe West, who are currently the 2 most hated umpires in Major League Baseball, and if you look at their history...
So is that him? Is he like part of a rock band as well? That's what he does in his spare time.
It's pretty obvious why. Angel Hernandez is from Cuba and once filed a racial discrimination lawsuit against MLB after not being selected to umpire in the World Series. The public would have had more sympathy for him if it wasn't for him being widely criticized for making calls like this, where the ball clearly goes over the fence, hits a rail, and comes back onto play. Angel looked at this on replay and still called it a double. In a playoff game, he once had 4 plays reviewed in the first 4 innings. 3 of them were reversed. He stared down and ejected former NFL player Steve McMichael when he said this after singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at a Cubs game.
I'll have Have some speaks with that home plate umpire after the game.
CC Sabathia said he doesn't understand how Angel still umpires games. Pedro Martinez says he was horrible and MLB needed to do something about him. Chipper Jones promised he would never watch a game umpired by him ever again. And after Ian Kinsler was ejected by Angel, he told the media he was surprised how bad he was at his job, which prompted Angel and other umpires to wear white wristbands to protest umpire abuse.
Come on. I mean, if you're genuinely bad at your job, you can't complain when someone just calls you out on it. Just take it on the chin and try and be better.
So it is no surprise that when the court found no discrimination between MLB and Angel Hernandez, many fans were ecstatic. However, Angel Hernandez probably isn't as bad of an umpire as people think. Although he is probably below average, according to Boston University, he did not make the top 10 worst umpire list. In 2018, Joe West was on that list. He's been an umpire for 45 years, has released 2 country albums, was in the movie Naked Gun, and plays golf on the Celebrity Players Tour. He was once suspended for shoving manager Joe Torre after a game. He was suspended for grabbing Jonathan Papelbon after ejecting him, was suspended for saying Adrian Beltran was the biggest complainer in baseball, and Andre Dawson once...
He got suspended for that. That seems a bit harsh, just because he said someone complains a lot. Come on.
Threw 14 bats on the field because he was mad at Joe West. Joe West was once so annoyed with Raul Mondesi for taking so long to get in the box, he called a strike before he was even in the box. In 2010, players ranked him the second worst umpire in baseball. In 2011, 41% of players called him the worst umpire in baseball, and in 2018, he ranked second least accurate umpire according to Boston University. Joe West umpired his last game ever in 2021, shortly after breaking the record for most games umpired in Major League history. He is 68 years old, and to be fair to him, his stats of being one of the worst umpires is probably not accurate throughout his entire career. If you evaluated his calls in his prime, he was probably an above average umpire.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's been doing it for 45 years. That's a very, very long time to do one job. You're obviously going to, dip a bit as time goes on in terms of ability.
Boston University found that umpires seem to perform worse as they get older. Unfortunately, MLB seems to value experience, which usually leaves out any umpire on the top 10 list because they are all under the age of 40. Replacing older umpires with younger minor league umpires would probably result in better calls. However, MLB seems to be going in a different direction. For several years, they have experimented with a robot ump in the Arizona Fall League and the Atlantic League. Manager Frank Viola has already been ejected at least 2 times for arguing with the robot. This pitch was seen at a
arguing with the robot.
player's neck and called a strike, and there have been many more bad calls. MLB has still expanded the system into the minor league level in 2021 and seems like it wants to take it to the major league level sooner rather than later. Just like instant replay, people will complain. But also, just like instant replay, it will be in Major League Baseball, and by the time it is, it will almost be, without a doubt, more accurate than Major League umpires,
100%.
who are better now than they've ever been. However, their job is extremely difficult. They'll never be perfect, and it's hard to compete with a robot. Human umpires will still be needed to listen to the call in their ear set and make the strike or ball signal, and make calls on the bases. There will still be umpires, just less arguments, less bats thrown on the field, and less ejections, which to me is unfortunate. But there will also be more correct calls, which in reality is the whole point of
Interesting video. On the face of it, having robot umpires sounds sensible, but I worry that it's going to take something away from the game. It's going to make it a bit more, it's going to remove the controversy. It's going to be a bit too clean. I think having umpires making wrong decisions here and there, it creates talking points. It creates, drama, things that you remember about a game. I don't know, it's a weird one. What do you guys think? Would you rather have complete robot umpires, or would you rather keep it the way it is? Let me know. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.